Sir James Bevan was appointed the British High Commissioner to India last year. He began his career in the British Diplomatic Service in 1982 and has since worked in Africa, the United States, and Europe. Sir James was in Bhutan last week on his first visit to the country and he shared his experiences on Talking Matters.
I'm delighted to be here in Bhutan. It's my first ever visit to your country. I have to say I think I've already fallen in love with Bhutan. I've been very impressed by the beauty of the country. I've been very delighted by the sweetness of the air, and I've been made extremely welcome by the people, so I'm delighted to be here.
As a first-time visitor to Bhutan, you've read up on Bhutan, of course, and then when you come in, do they gel, or was it a little disorienting for you even?
I mean, I think Bhutan is, if you like, even more special than I had expected. I've read a lot about Bhutan, I've heard a lot about it. People say it is a unique country, and you hear that about a lot of countries, but I think in Bhutan's case that is really true. There's something special about the beauty of the country, there's something special about the people, and obviously there's something special about this concept of GNH, which I'm looking forward to exploring further.
But you already have an understanding of gross national happiness. Are you hoping to supplement that? Are you hoping to discover something that you haven't read on GNH?
Well, I am. Britain is actually very interested in the GNH concept that has been developed here. We've adopted it as part of the process by which we plan our own government and economy. So that's a great tribute to Bhutan's foresight in developing this concept. I understand the basics, but I'm very keen in learning a bit over the next 2 days about how it works in practice.
Are you planning on hiking, climbing some hills, maybe to visit the tiger's nest? Because that seems to be on the top of the list whenever people travel to Bhutan.
I'm hoping to do so. I do have some official business that I need to do, of course. That's my primary reason for coming here. But it would be a tragedy to visit such a beautiful country and not see some of the wonders that the tourists see.
But you don't have a problem with the air, because people who come from lower altitudes say they feel almost euphoric when they're here because the air is so thin that, you know, it's a different feeling. Have you experienced that?
I could say that I feel euphoric being here, but I don't think it's the air. I think it's because it's such a wonderful country.
What about Bhutan being a young democracy then? I mean, you've traveled all over the world. What are your impressions of democracy here then?
Well, I think first I'd like to pay tribute to the foresight of His Majesty the Fourth King in introducing democracy and a constitutional monarchy to Bhutan, and to the leadership of His Majesty the Fifth King in taking that forward and implementing that very visionary decision. I've been already very impressed by what I've seen and heard. I've already talked to senior Bhutanese about how democracy is working here. I'm very encouraged by what I see, and I'm very confident that that's given the country a very strong basis for the future.
This is actually your first time in Southeast Asia, that is, and India is of course one of the biggest democratic nations. What has your experience been like in India? You were there since November, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Well, I've been made very welcome in India also. India and Bhutan are of course completely different, though they have very close and friendly relations. I think what's important about this whole region is that this is where the future is being built. The rising economic powers are in Asia, and that's why my government believes that we need to strengthen our relationships with those powers, India and of course Bhutan.
Well, what was it like, your experience in India when you first touched ground in India, let me say?
Well, because I didn't know India before, I'd visited India but I hadn't lived and worked in India. I thought it would be good to learn a bit about the real India. And so for the first 2.5 months after my arrival, my wife and I travelled around India as private citizens, as tourists if you like, to learn about the real country. And we were made very welcome, and it made me very upbeat and optimistic about the future of India. There's lots of energy, lots of creativity, lots of growth, and it's a country that like Britain and like Bhutan is proud of its past and confident of its future.
Also in November, besides your posting to India, His Majesty the King and the Queen visited your country, and he was elected a Royal Bencher of the Honourable Society of the Inner Temple, which is really a great honour. How is it that you decide that a certain person becomes a member elected to this? Because there have been a number of really distinguished personalities in this set.
Well, you're quite right that it was a very great and unique honour, because for 700 years members of the British royal family have been elected as royal benchers of the Inner Temple, which is our legal base. But it was the first time ever that a foreign monarch was elected to that honour. So that's a very important and very unique signal of the importance that Britain attaches to its relations with Bhutan. I wasn't, of course, privy to the workings of the bar when they took that decision, but I'm sure that they had regard to the very close ties that already exist between Britain and Bhutan. I'm sure they were conscious of the very close personal relationship that His Majesty the Fifth King has with Britain, because, of course, he's studied there and knows the country very well. And I'm sure that they felt that in the light of those factors, it was right to do him this very unique honour.
Bhutan does really share a significant relationship with the UK when it comes to higher level education. Of course, His Majesty himself had studied at Oxford, and his two younger brothers as well. Two of the princes were there, one at Oxford and one at Sandhurst. So education, I mean, we have 25 Bhutanese studying there as well. Do you see more cooperation in that area?
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that I'm here to discuss. I think that the relationship between Britain and Bhutan is already very good. So there's, as we've said, a very strong relationship between our royal families. There's a lot of people-to-people exchange. So Bhutanese students go to the UK and Bhutanese visitors go to the UK, and British visitors come to Bhutan. In fact, I met one just now before this interview. And of course, we were delighted to welcome the Bhutanese team to London in 2012. But I do think that we can strengthen the relationship further, and I think that education is one of the key areas in which we can do that. So I'll be talking to Bhutanese government officials over the time of my visit. One area where I think we can deepen cooperation is in teaching, both teaching in schools here in Bhutan, and I hope that we can do more to help the work of your excellent schools, and in English language training, where I think there may be more that we can do to help all Bhutanese acquire excellent English. But also in the area of scholarships. And I am here to announce that we will be offering a new scholarship, a journalism scholarship, to a talented Bhutanese journalist. This will be next year in the UK at the prestigious University of Westminster. All expenses will be paid, and so it will be a very good opportunity for one of your talented journalists, of which I know you have many. So we'll be looking forward to recruiting that person and welcoming them to the UK next year.
This is really wonderful news. I think a lot of people in the media were quite excited to be hearing about this. And also you were looking at training in the judiciary.
Yes. So I think a second area where we in Bhutan can work more closely together is in the foundation of the rule of law, which is very strong here in Bhutan and strong in the UK, and I think collaboration can help us take that forward. So one proposal we have, which I'll be discussing with the Bhutanese authorities later today, is to develop exchanges between our judiciary and the Bhutanese judiciary, perhaps to facilitate some training in the United Kingdom of Bhutanese legal practitioners, and perhaps some exchanges where legal experts from both sides can visit each other's countries, so that together we can continue to strengthen our judiciaries.
Last year was pretty interesting, I mean, for the United Kingdom and of course also for Bhutan, historically even. We had the royal weddings, and it wasn't just Bhutan drawing the comparison. In fact, the entire world, you had the royal wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton, and here we had the royal wedding of His Majesty to Queen Pema. And then of course we had Bhutan heading to London for the London Olympics 2012. It was almost as if it wasn't on purpose, but we were being drawn together, and you see that as being positive and continuing.
I do. I think it was a tremendous year for both our countries. You're right that people did draw parallels between what was happening in the UK and what was happening here in Bhutan. There was a lot of interest in Britain in the wedding of His Majesty, and a lot of people followed that wedding in Britain, and people did draw comparisons between the two weddings, and both were very happy and very successful occasions. I do think more deeply what happened in 2012, those weddings and the celebrations that took place, they said something very profound about Bhutan and about Britain, which is that these are countries that do have very proud pasts and very strong traditions, which we celebrate and which we value. But these are two countries which are also looking to the future and very confident of that future. And so I do think it's drawn comparisons between our two countries and brought us closer together.
So do you see a strengthening of our relationship culturally then?
I would like to hope so. I'm certainly keen to encourage more British people to visit Bhutan and learn about this beautiful country. I'm keen to develop more student exchanges both ways, so that we don't just have Bhutanese students going to the UK, but we have more British students coming here to Bhutan. And in terms of cultural exchanges, Bhutan has a wonderful culture. I've already seen some of that in the few hours that I've been here, and I'm sure that there's more that we can do to celebrate that culture in Britain, and more that perhaps we can do to bring various elements of British culture here to Bhutan.
I think a lot of Bhutanese were exposed to what little of British culture they could watch on television this year because of the London Olympics, and of course Bhutan participating, so there was a lot of images uploaded on Twitter, there was a lot of things being done on social media, and of course there was coverage by the BBC and other channels as well. You would say that the London Olympics was successful in what it started out to do and be?
I would. I mean, we tried to put on the greatest show on earth in the greatest city on earth, and I think we did that. We showed, I think, that Britain can deliver big and complicated and difficult projects. This was the world's largest ever logistical operation, 170 heads of state and government coming to Britain, hundreds and thousands of tourists, and of course the Olympic teams themselves, including the Bhutanese team. So it was a very complicated endeavour, but I think we managed to demonstrate that we can be efficient in Britain. I think we managed to demonstrate that we can be warm. I think people felt very welcome. And I think it was a success that said something powerful and positive about Britain in the 21st century.
But what is really the British interest in Bhutan? I mean, we've spoken of education as well as culture, and then you were talking about how there was reaction to the royal wedding here as well. So what would you say is the general reaction of somebody from the UK to Bhutan then?
Well, I think there's a lot of interest in Britain in Bhutan's history and traditions, which are unique. There's a great deal of interest, as we've said, in this concept of gross national happiness. There's a great deal of interest amongst visitors to come and see the beautiful tourist sites that you have here in Bhutan. And on the part of my government, there's a great deal of interest in strengthening a relationship that is already good, but I think has more potential. We've mentioned education, which I think is a growth area for the relationship. We've mentioned this concept of gross national happiness, which we're interested in studying. We've mentioned cooperation in the rule of law. I think one other area that will be of importance to Bhutan and to Britain is trade and investment. So we are interested in looking at whether there's more British companies could do here in Bhutan to develop trading links and perhaps to invest. And maybe there are elements in Bhutan who would be interested in investing in the United Kingdom. So over the next couple of years, I'd very much like to explore those opportunities, because I think stronger trade and investment between our two countries will help boost the prosperity of both.
You've had quite a distinguished career. If you could share with me a very challenging moment for you, because I think you're at a good place to actually be talking about a challenging experience then.
That's a good question. I think all my career has sometimes presented challenges, but also some wonderful opportunities. So I don't regret having spent 30 years in the diplomatic service. I've visited a lot of fascinating countries that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. I've lived in Algeria, in North Africa. I've lived and worked in the Democratic Republic of Congo, in Belgium, in the United States, and in a bunch of other countries. I think every place has brought challenges. What I would say is that whether you find those a problem or an opportunity depends on your attitude. And what I have tried to do everywhere I have gone is to look for the positive things in the countries that I'm visiting. And I think if you do that, challenges stop being challenges and they become opportunities. And I can honestly say that I've really enjoyed every country that I've lived and worked in, and look forward to doing the same very much here in Bhutan.
You've pretty much lived in almost all the continents except for Antarctica. That's what I was thinking yesterday when I went through your CV, and I was like, wow, that's impressive. He's been everywhere. Your family's traveled with you as well to these countries.
They have.
And they share similar experiences like yours, or do they find it a little more difficult adjusting?
I think it is more difficult for a family because I choose this career, and I know that that means I'm going to be travelling to all places around the world. My family didn't choose that career, but it also means that they have travelled with me. So I think on balance they've all really enjoyed it. I often joke with my wife that she only married me in order to get a ticket to travel around the world. She certainly has enjoyed very much the travels that we've done, and she's with me here today in Bhutan with my youngest daughter, so they are delighted to be here and very much enjoying seeing something of Bhutan. I think all of my daughters have been born abroad. So my two eldest daughters were born in Belgium, and my youngest daughter was born in Washington, D.C. I think on balance they would say that it's been good for them, that they have enjoyed meeting other people, learning about other cultures, and I think it's also made them more ready to value the things in Britain that we have, which we value, that perhaps unless you travel abroad you don't really notice.
What about the challenges for the region that you are in currently, Southeast Asia? I mean, you can juxtapose it to your experiences in other areas of the world as well. What do you see as being the challenges of the 21st century for this region then in the area of development and where we're headed?
Well, I think the strategic challenge for all countries in this region is development. And inclusive development that benefits everybody, not just a few. And I know that that's Bhutan's goal, and that's one which we strongly support. So development is the big challenge. What that requires is peace and stability, which is the first condition for successful development, and the right policies to deliver successful development. And I have to say that I think Bhutan is a very good example in that regard. It is a peaceful and stable country. It is a country with a democratic process now underway. It has inclusive policies that are focused, as I understand it, on ensuring development for everyone. And we support all of those things. So I think in many ways Bhutan is a model for the kind of policies that we'd like to see across the region.
You do agree that we need to look at a different manner of development, that GDP is not enough and we do need to bring in a development philosophy like G&H in this day and age?
I do. I certainly think that focusing simply on GDP is the wrong approach to development. We certainly know that an increase in GDP, an increase in growth, doesn't necessarily translate into people getting out of poverty. So it's very important to remember that. So certainly the concept that development needs to be broader than GDP is one that we strongly endorse, and the concept that development needs to be focused on the well-being of people, which is not just about money, it's about happiness and health and future prospects. That's a very powerful concept which we entirely agree with.
When people visit Bhutan, and of course when we speak of G&H, we cannot leave out the environment, because the first impressions really are of how beautiful Bhutan is, and that of course includes greenery. But the environment is actually a challenge as well now in this day. When you're trying to develop, you actually compromise on your environmental stability. Is that an area of concern for you?
Well, it's an area where I think all countries are right to be focused. As you say, the first impression of a new visitor like me to Bhutan is of tremendous beauty and tremendous natural wealth in terms of your environment and your ecology. And so clearly Bhutan will want to ensure that it preserves that tremendous heritage. At the same time, growth is essential in order to deliver greater prosperity. And the challenge for Bhutan, just as it is for Britain and all other countries, is to balance the importance of growth against the protection of the environment. I actually think that you can have both. If you have the right policies, if you pursue, if you like, green growth, you can largely protect your environment and generate the prosperity that you need for your people. And getting that balance right is, I know, very important to Bhutan, it's very important to the UK, and I'm confident, as I say, that in the wisdom of the Bhutanese people that you will get that balance right here.
I could personally actually see us drawing from projects that y'all have already begun in the UK in this area, because still in Bhutan we are at a very nascent stage. We haven't really been able to use or be as environmentally responsible as we want to be, and you have had some successful green initiatives in your country.
Well, we have. I don't think that this is a one-way process. I think Britain can learn from Bhutan, just as perhaps Bhutan can learn from Britain in this and other areas. We have, in the last several years in Britain, put much greater emphasis on environmental protection. We have banished plastic bags, or at least made people pay money to buy plastic bags, which has deterred people from using plastic bags, which can cause pollution. We have encouraged recycling. The government has used financial and other incentives to encourage people to use more efficient energy sources and to promote the use of renewable energy like solar energy, wind and wave power. In particular, wind and wave power are being very strongly developed in the United Kingdom. They form an increasing part of our energy supplies, and there too there may be something that we can, together with Bhutan, we can take forward.
So would you say that the initiative then first must come from the government?
Well, I think it's. I don't believe in the philosophy that government must do everything. I think you want government to empower people and government to provide a framework in which ordinary people can build the future for their country that they want. So I think it's a responsibility of all of us. I think government needs to shape policies that promote the preservation of natural riches and promote green growth. But I think individuals, you and I, each of us, we need to take responsibility too. It's our country and we need to make sure that we look after it.
Your being in India as the British High Commissioner, of course, now is going to be very vividly in the memories of people as being the one who went to meet Narendra Modi to actually re-establish your ties with Gujarat. But I mean, in your interview, in the coverage by the press of your meeting Narendra Modi, you actually went out to say that just because you met him does not really mean that you are endorsing him.
Well, that's right. We did take a decision that after 10 years of no engagement with the government of Gujarat, it was right for the British government to re-engage. Part of the reason for that was because the British government, which was elected in 2010, took a decision to deepen its relationship with India and with the whole of India. And Gujarat is a key state in India, and if you want to develop relations with India, you have to develop your relationship with Gujarat. Part of the reason was because there have been legal processes in Gujarat since the riots of 2002 which have brought to justice many of the people who were responsible. And part of the reason is that Gujarat has grown in importance to the UK over the last 10 years. We have a very big Gujarati diaspora in the UK, for example, and Gujarat is a rich and successful state. So we thought it was right to re-engage. If you're going to engage with any Indian state, you have to engage with the government and you have to engage with the Chief Minister, and that's what we've done. But as I said, in Gujarat, engagement does not necessarily mean endorsement. And we will work with whoever is the duly elected Chief Minister of Gujarat.
So British diplomacy now is about being practical.
I think we've always believed, if you like, in a pragmatic approach, but I don't accept the view that I have heard that this is a choice between realpolitik on the one hand and principles on the other. I think, for example, human rights is an issue that remains of interest to us in relation to Gujarat. And I believe that actually we're more likely to achieve our human rights goals in Gujarat and elsewhere by engaging with the government and dialogue with Gujarat than by isolation. So I don't actually see a choice between principles and practicality.
Thank you for coming on Talking Matters today.
Well, thank you. And perhaps I could just end by passing on greetings from the people of the United Kingdom to the people of Bhutan. Thank you.